All right, we would away. Please be seated. We as well. Good afternoon. Welcome back, Madam Prosecutor. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Honor. I will start with the references you requested, and please accept my apologies for skipping over them previously. So, in relation to my previous submissions, for the destruction of the Boeing Mosque, please refer to CAR OTP 2127 6626 at 6627. For the destruction of Muslim property slide, CAR OTP to 0750670. For the destruction of a Muslim-owned house, CAR OTP to 0140751. For Muslim refugees at the Bangui airport imagery, CAR OTP 21071185. For images related to the PK5 enclave and the January convoy, CAR OTP 20730258 and 0338. Related to the 1st April convoy, the images, CAR OTP 2061 4281, 4284, 4285, and 4287. In relation to the living conditions in PK5, CAR OTP 20730269. The image related to the count of murder related to Bosangoa, CAR OTP to 0882207. Imagery related to the destruction in Bosangoa, CAR OTP to 0790671. In relation to the destruction of the mosque in Bosangoa, please refer to CAR OTP to 0882204. Then, in relation to the enclave in Bosangoa, the imageries that you saw are at CAR OTP to 1276626 at 6629. Related to the conditions in the Bosangoa enclave, the video is at CAR OTP to 0790677. And then the video with the quote, "They do the same to us," is at CAR OTP to 0665308. The video with the quote, "We are going to kill the little children too," is at CAR OTP to 0653188. And the last video before the break referencing the quote, "We are going to make a massacre," is at CAR OTP to 0655468.
Thank you very much.
Your Honors, before the break, we had begun speaking about the contributions of Mr. Mokom, and I had left off at discussing his contributions in terms of weapons and ammunitions to the anti-Balaka. In order to address the evidence in relation to this contribution, I would like to request a short private session because the insider witnesses I will reference have to stay protected.
Yeah, the request is granted. Mr. Court Officer, please.
We're back in open session, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. Kindly continue.
In addition to arranging such material supplies, Mr. Mokom kept track of the enlistment of fighters. An insider witness from the Gobera group, who helped compile these lists, explained how it worked from the car side. And this I can reference in open session because it was also referenced openly in Yakatoman and Gaisona. For the record, the reference here is the witness's statement at car OTP 2031-0248 at paragraphs 36 and 38, and his trial testimony at car OTP 0000950 at pages 14 to 15 and 18 to 20. According to this witness, when a new fighter joined the group, their name would be recorded on a registry the group had. Later, an anti-Balaka leader, like Dadan or Kema, would communicate the names of new fighters by phone to Mr. Mokom. Adjustments to the lists would also be communicated after attacks to keep track of which men had been lost and which were still alive. The witness says that these lists were sent to Mr. Mokom. A Zongo-based witness confirms that Mr. Mokom recorded and maintained these types of lists of fighters, and on his computer. For the record, the reference is CAR OTP 2100-2569 at 0282, paragraph 72. Using his knowledge of the situation in the field, Mr. Mokom helped advise also on troop movements and helped plan and direct early attacks in the provinces between September and early December 2013. This is according to witnesses on the ground in Kar and witnesses based in Zongo alongside Mr. Mokom. For the record, the references include CAR OTP 2031-0241 at 0247, paragraph 33, and CAR OTP 2100-569 at 2574, paragraphs 26 to 31. Mr. Mokom also contributed to the charged attacks and resulting crimes, therefore, by encouraging his associates who were with him in Zongo to fight with the anti-Balaka. The prosecution's list of witnesses include two examples of such associates. Both of these witnesses report having been encouraged or directed by Mr. Mokom to cross the river from Zongo into Kar to join the anti-Balaka. And both of these prosecution witnesses ultimately took part in the charged attack on Bangui. The first of these two witnesses is P0446. He describes attending a meeting that Mr. Mokom held in Zongo shortly before the Bangui attack, where many other elements attended as well. In that meeting, Mr. Mokom called upon his comrades to join the fight in Bangui. The witness was one of many men who answered that call. He and others crossed over to Bangui shortly thereafter and fought in the charged attack. The reference here is CAR OTP to 059-1626 at 1646. The witness's account that Mr. Mokom sent fighters from Zongo to Bangui shortly before the charged attack is supported by Mr. Mokom's own Facebook communications from the period where Mr. Mokom refers to his men having crossed over to Bangui. In a conversation on 2nd December 2013 with another member of Bozizi's inner circle, Mr. Mokom tells this man, and I quote in French, "Mes hommes d'ici ont traversé déjà à Bangui. Tout se passe bien, on est ensemble. For the record, the reference is car OTP to 066 3003 at 3078. Another witness says Mr. Mokom had given him a task when he left Zongo, and that was to fight the Seleka to help lead the rebellion. The witness performed this task, including by fighting in attacks in the provinces and ultimately taking part in the charged 5 December attack on Bangui. The reference here is car OTP to 1110336. Now, Your Honors, Mr. Mokom was not physically present during either the Bossangoa or the Bangui attacks. And for sure, Mr. Mokom was also not the only person involved in planning, overseeing, or otherwise being involved in these two offensives. Nevertheless, the evidence shows that Mr. Mokom's actions encouraged the fighters to come together and therefore helped carry out these attacks. Broadly speaking, Mr. Mokom's efforts to liaise between different anti-Balaka groups and members served to help unify these groups and focus their aims on a larger goal beyond defending their own villages. According to P0889, it was due to Mr. Mokom that people like Angelo and other anti-Balaka leaders ended up going to Bangui to fight the Seleka in the capital. This witness describes how Mr. Mokom achieved this by encouraging the different village self-defense groups to come together to help take back their villages, and then eventually to come together and to free Bangui. The reference here is car OTP 0000942 at pages 16 to 17. To illustrate this with an example, Your Honors, I would like to go again into a brief private session.
Yeah, your request is granted, Mr. Court Officer.
We're back in open session, Mr. President.
Many thanks. Kindly continue.
In relation to the Bangui attack, insiders give detailed first-hand accounts of Mr. Mokom's actions. They say that Mr. Mokom helped prepare the strategy for the attack, liaised continuously by phone with key personnel in Bangui in the days before the attack. Again, he was not the only one doing this, but these insiders support that he had a role to play. The references here are CAR OTP 2100 to 569 at 0576, paragraph 37. The accounts of these insiders are supported by the insider accounts of other anti-Balaka who were across the river and in Bangui at the time of the attack. These include P0446, who states that Mr. Mokom, while based in Zongo, remained as the overall coordinator of the attack, coordinating by phone. For the record, the reference is CAR OTP 2059-1672 at 1693. As an aside note, Your Honors, Zongo is so close to Bangui, mere 2 kilometers away, that phone calls from Zongo connect to Bangui cell sites. Telecommunications support that Mr. Mokom was actively engaged in relation to the 5 December attack. These records show Mr. Mokom communicating with known leaders of the attack, including the day before the attack and during the attack itself. Mr. Mokom was in particularly frequent contact with Charles Ngremangu and Yvonne Konate. As noted previously, both of them played an important role in this attack. Ngremangu as one of the leaders of the group that attacked the Boeing area, and Konate as the leader of the group that targeted Camp Kasai. On 5th December 2013, Mr. Mokom's first contact with Konate started very early at 43 minutes after midnight. Mokom's last call of the day at 22 hours 16 was also to Konate. For the record, I'm referring you here to the call sequence table at CAR OTP 00001189 at rows 154 and 538. Similarly, Mr. Mokom's first contact with Ngremangu started in the early morning of the day of the attack. They first spoke at 5 hours 32 and continued in frequent contact throughout the day, with the last contact at 16 hours 40. I'm referring again to the same call sequence table at rows 169 and 500. The records also show Mr. Mokom communicating on the day of the attack with fighters that he had sent from his Zongo group, namely Lieutenant Bruno Sandira and Lieutenant Abdel Danamganai. I refer here to rows 381 to 382 and rows 442 to 445 of the same call sequence table. I will now turn to Mr. Mokom's contributions in the period after the attack, when he had relocated to Bangui. According to multiple insiders, Mr. Mokom continued to coordinate the anti-Balaka first from his base in Zongo and then after relocating to Bangui from Bangui itself. In a video referenced at CAR OTP 2095 to 903, filmed on 10th December, Yaguzu is filmed speaking about still being in contact with Commander Mokom. He refers to him as l'unique commandant Mokom regarding decisions on strategy. The evidence shows that Mokom relocated to Bangui around 6 February 2014. Mr. Mokom was then officially designated as the Anti-Balaka National Coordinator of Operations at the latest on 14th February 2014, when it was announced. Your Honors, please recall what the situation for Muslims was like in Bangui at this time. One insider witness states that Mokom then said the following at a meeting with Comzones right after he came back to Bangui. And I quote, "You know how we worked on our way to Bangui. The objective is to bring back Bazizi to Bangui. I ask all Comzones to give me an overview about their men, their weapons, and the men who died. We are facing a big fight. We will prepare this fight for our reward tomorrow. We came to liberate the population and to chase out the Seleka. When the Seleka have left, the power will be ours." This citation is at CAR OTP 2090-0561 at 0579, paragraph 138. After this joint event, the same insider describes how Mr. Mokom then toured the different bases in Bangui. And in this time, when he was proximate to the crimes of the Anti-Balaka in Bangui, he strove to make them more efficient, more structured. He was involved in a number of activities as operations coordinator. These included setting up military police, billeting of elements, measures to enlist elements in DDR, and to assist in getting anti-Balaka detainees released. Mr. Mokom would also check with Comzones on the situation in their neighborhoods. He would verify information on attacks and respond by talking to people also by phone in this period. According to P2232, Mr. Mokom would approve military activities of the Comzones together with Engaisona in this time. And I refer you to CAR OTP 2100-2569 at 2582, paragraph 54, 66 to 71, 84, and 86 to 87. P1719 also confirms that from the province where he was after the attacks, the witness I mean, he would usually speak with Mr. Mokom and speak with him on anti-Balaka activities because he had this role. I refer you to CAR OTP 2062-0039 at 0054, paragraph 92. Another witness states that Mr. Mokom would ask Yaguzu to gather the Comzones at Engaisona's house. The reference is CAR OTP 2072-1739 at 1753 to 1757. The descriptions of Mr. Mokom's support to the anti-Balaka as part of the national coordination in this period are represented in his communications to key members of the national coordination, which your honors can find in Annex C2 to the DCC. And I specifically refer to paragraphs 19 to 20, 28 to 29 of this annex. His support to the organization through the national coordination is also reflected in documents. For example, on your screens now is a declaration issued by the Anti-Balaka on 14th February 2014 and provided by a prosecution witness. This declaration shows the military structure of the Anti-Balaka and Mr. Mokom's position in this structure as National Operations Coordinator. The reference is at CAR OTP 2025-0380 at 0385. Another example is this anti-Balaka communique of 16th March provided by a prosecution witness. Here we see Mr. Mokom's signature. He is signing in his capacity as National Operations Coordinator. The reference is CAR OTP 20350061. Now, Mr. Mokom's contributions in this period were not reduced to supporting the anti-Balaka and Bangui. He also contributed to the ongoing activities of the anti-Balaka, which resulted in ongoing crimes against Muslims in Bossangoa after 5 December. Mokom had a long-standing relationship with the anti-Balaka Comzone, Kema, starting from the Zongo period onward. As P0446 explains, Mr. Mokom was the operations coordinator, and as such, he was in continual contact with all the anti-Balaka groups and the youth which had organized themselves in self-defense groups in the provinces. I refer you to CAR OTP to 059-1626 at 1642 and the same document at 1645. Mr. Mokom remained in contact with Kema after Mokom had returned to Bangui. Kema would come to Bangui for meetings while he was still in charge of Bossangoa and overseeing the anti-Balaka activities in Bossangoa at the time. Thus, after the 5 December attacks, Mr. Mokom continued to support the anti-Balaka subgroups through his role in the national coordination, working towards cementing its power while the anti-Balaka in Bangui, as well as in Bossangoa, displaced, deported, forcibly transferred Muslim civilians, deprived them of their liberty in the enclaves, and destroyed their houses and religious sites. Now, let me be clear. The prosecution is not suggesting that it is a crime under the statute simply to support the military activities of an armed group. But such support may lead to criminal responsibility if it contributes to the commission of crimes under the statute, and if the contributor has the required intention or awareness concerning those crimes. And this was the case for Mr. Mokom, who knowingly and intentionally contributed to the activities of the anti-Balaka and therefore to the crimes. Let me turn to this in detail now. There are substantial grounds to believe that Mr. Mokom had the requisite intent and knowledge for the charged crimes under the modes of liability charged. Specifically, Mr. Mokom had the requisite knowledge because he was aware, since it was common knowledge, that many anti-Balaka fighters would not distinguish between Seleka fighters and Muslim civilians. He was aware, since it was common knowledge, that anti-Balaka attacks in the provinces routinely resulted in civilian casualties and destruction of property. He was therefore aware, when he made his contributions, that the charged crimes would occur in the ordinary course of events. Given his role and the nature of his activities, Mr. Mokom knew the consequences of supporting the anti-Balaka. Once properly mobilized and given the chance to attack the Seleka in Bangui and Bossangoa, Mr. Mokom knew that the anti-Balaka would also target the Muslim civilian population alongside the Seleka and commit the charged crimes. He could not have failed to know this, given all circumstances, including the recent history, the calls for revenge, the violent rhetoric, and other evidence before you. Nevertheless, Mr. Mokom made the choice to persist in his contributions to the activities of the anti-Balaka throughout the charged period. He made this choice even after the anti-Balaka attacks in the provinces from September to December, attacks which were broadly known to have resulted in targeting of civilians and civilian objects. He made this choice even after the massive civilian casualties and destruction of the charged 5 December attacks. He continued to make this choice during and after the terrible atrocities unfolding in Yaloke, Karno, and Berberati in early 2014, of which Mr. Deputy Prosecutor spoke this morning. He made this choice again after he had relocated to Bangui in February and was surrounded by the visible effects of the anti-Balaka's actions, including the destruction of property, destruction of mosques, and displacement of Muslims in Bangui. For the purpose of these confirmation proceedings, the prosecution relies on the following evidence to show that there are substantial grounds to believe that Mr. Mokom had the requisite intent and knowledge. I would like to start with the witness evidence, and for this request another private session, please.
The request is granted. Mr. Court Officer, kindly proceed.
We're back in open session, Mr. President.
Thank you. You may proceed.
P0884 stated at trial that all Central Africans were aware of the anti-Balaka combat operations in the provinces in 2013. He was aware of the attacks from the radio and by the print media. Everyone was informed, he says. I was not the only one to be aware of that. All Central Africans were aware. CAR OTP 00001097 at pages 40 to 41. And I recall Mr. Mokom saying this morning as well, related to the Seleka attacks, that all Central Africans were aware from the media. P2027 stated that he decided not to join the anti-Balaka and that it was foreseeable that things would end badly. I quote him. He says, God can be my witness that I foresaw everything that was happening. I saw the anti-Balaka actions and told some of them to respect humanitarian law because they will end up dead or in prison. I knew all along that things would end badly. CAR OTP 20780059, paragraphs 88 and 136. Another insider witness stated, I could foresee that the conflict would be bloody and violent. The anti-Balaka were already going too far prior to the December 5th. CAR OTP 21274238 at 4270, paragraph 177. Now, Your Honors, the inference that Mr. Mokom had the requisite knowledge that the crimes as charged would occur in the ordinary course of events is also supported by the fact that anti-Balaka crimes were wildly reported in the media, so much so that one could not escape it. On your screen, you have a selection of newspaper clippings of national and international publications. These all dealt with topics such as, for example, targeting of Muslim civilians in Bosangoa and other regions in the relevant time, describing the attacks not only as attacks against the Seleka, but precisely their impact on civilian lives and livelihoods. The ERNs that are here seen and displayed are CAR OTP 20611427, CAR OTP 20790622, CAR OTP 20740421, CAR OTP 20014118, CAR OTP 20820793, and CAR OTP 20791940. This is how Centrafrique Matin titled its first page on 4th December, reporting the 2nd December horror in Bouali, where 12 were killed by machete and also children seriously wounded. Mr. Deputy Prosecutor already referenced this incident this morning. The reference to this slide I would like to give quickly. 2088? 2648. Sorry for that. The reporting of crimes continued after the 5th December attacks. Again, the reporting was clear. It was not only about attacking Seleka or skirmishes between anti-Balaka and Seleka. It was about the crimes targeting Muslim civilians, illustrating the same pattern of criminality continuing throughout CAR. The references here are CAR OTP 20014429, CAR OTP 20014446, CAR OTP 20791147, 20014330, and 2079-1166. Furthermore, in this period, several UN Security Council resolutions recognized not only the armed conflict itself, but its impact, the impact of the violence against civilians. The violence in CAR remained at such a level of intensity throughout this period that the Security Council actually authorized foreign military intervention under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. And the references here for these resolutions are at CAR OTP 2001-0256, 0275, CAR OTP 2051-0665, CAR OTP 2001 at 1043, and CAR OTP 2091 at 0488. When Mr. Mokom relocated to Bangui, he was in close proximity to the crimes as they were happening. Nonetheless, he met with the comm zones. He went to their bases. He continued to support the groups united under the national coordination now. To make the anti-Balaka stronger and more effective, yes. But he chose to proceed anyway, when a reasonable person would have walked away. This, Your Honors, contributed to a disastrous situation for Central African Muslims. His support for the group's actions left thousands of others to be expelled and claved under dire condition, have their property destroyed at the hands of the anti-Balaka elements while he was part of the national coordination. Mr. Mokom made his choice. And Your Honors, he should now be held responsible for the foreseeable consequences of that choice and stand trial. And with that, I end my submissions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, then, 325, we will continue now with the submissions on the merits of the common legal representative of victims. You may proceed.
Je vais enlever mon truc là. Bon. Monsieur, alors c'est ouvert. Monsieur le Président, Madame, Messieurs les juges, tout d'abord, permettez-moi de saluer les victimes de Centrafrique, de Bangui, de Bossangoa, de Batampélé, de Boda, de Carnot, les victimes du Tchad, de Djamena, de la Logone orientale, occidentale, du Moyen Chari, de Sarre, les victimes du Congo, du Cameroun, venues d'Afrique, mais aussi en Europe, en France notamment, et partout dans le monde. Ces victimes, grâce aux réseaux sociaux, ces victimes sont au rendez-vous. Elles nous entendent et nous sommes là pour elles. Nous nous retrouvons aujourd'hui devant votre cour dans le cadre d'une audience de confirmation des charges. Article 61-7 du statut de Rome. L'objectif étant l'évaluation des charges que Monsieur le procureur présente. Celles-ci, en effet, doivent comporter des raisons substantielles de croire que M. Mokom a commis les crimes qui lui sont reprochés et si ces charges atteignent le seuil de valeur probatoire suffisant à ce stade préliminaire, dans l'affirmative, nous irons au procès. Cette décision préliminaire est fondamentale pour les victimes. Elle leur ouvre le champ des possibles. En savoir plus sur ce qui s'est passé, connaître les événements, essayer de comprendre. Votre décision délimitera le contour de ces éléments, champ temporel et champ démographique. La présente argumentation n'a pas pour ambition d'aborder les charges telles qu'elles ont été parfaitement étayées par le procureur, mais plutôt de les aborder sous l'angle des victimes. J'aborderai donc mes observations sur le fond en deux parties. L'une sur les enjeux de ce procès pour les victimes participantes, et elles sont très nombreuses, et l'autre sur leurs attentes, c'est-à-dire qu'est-ce que ce procès peut leur apporter et quel sens a leur participation. Les enjeux. Le premier enjeu pour ces victimes, c'est de connaître les crimes reprochés et susceptibles d'être commis par l'accusé. Quels sont ces crimes ? Ils sont contenus essentiellement dans les articles 7 et 8 du statut de Rome. Ils ont été rappelés, à savoir le meurtre, le viol, et les représentants légaux des victimes se réjouissent du fait que cette charge soit intégrée de façon autonome à la liste des crimes. Les attaques contre des bâtiments consacrés à la religion, les destructions de biens, le pillage, la déportation, les transferts forcés de population, la privation grave de liberté et les persécutions. Ceci est important, car dire les choses qui se sont passées, c'est reconnaître qu'elles ont existé. C'est faire reculer les attitudes du déni, de refus de la réalité. Ces faits sont là. Ils existent. Dire les choses, énoncer les crimes dans une enceinte de justice, particulièrement s'agissant du crime de viol, en toute connaissance du contexte socio-culturel qui imprègne et contraint les victimes. C'est une chose essentielle de le dire, de le nommer. En réalité, ce crime, il apparaît de manière sous-jacente, en permanence, dans les dossiers des victimes à participer. En effet, bien que les documents contenant les charges ne mentionnent que 2 victimes de viol, la réalité est tout autre. Les descriptions faites par les victimes mentionnent toutes que ces actes ont été commis sous la menace, par la force, dans un environnement coercitif. Comme l'a rappelé Maître Douzima ce matin, c'était une manière d'humilier les victimes, de prendre possession de leur corps et dominer la population par la coercition. Ce sont des actes constitutifs d'atteinte à la dignité personnelle. En parler, c'est faire reculer l'ignorance. Et c'est une bonne chose pour les victimes. Le deuxième enjeu. Le deuxième enjeu est illustré par les victimes que nous représentons, qui témoignent toutes, à travers leurs récits, de la nature particulièrement cruelle des attaques qu'elles ont subies, mais également de leur caractère généralisé et systématique. Il apparaît que toutes ces personnes, victimes individuelles, sont ciblées comme un groupe de personnes visées collectivement, à savoir les musulmans. Par exemple, l'attaque de la ville de Bangui, dans laquelle vivaient 130 000 musulmans, 18% de la population totale, l'attaque de Bossangoa, ou les attaques, puisqu'il y en a eu 2, Bossangoa, chef-lieu de la préfecture de l'Ouane, où vivaient 36 000 habitants musulmans, soit 20% de la population. Au regard de ce qui a été développé ce matin, les éléments anti-Balaka procédaient au ciblage systématique des maisons des musulmans qui étaient pillées et détruites. Les victimes mentionnent l'appropriation intentionnelle des biens des musulmans pour un usage personnel. De fait, ces musulmans perdaient leurs moyens d'existence qui consistaient en des biens de première nécessité, d'usage quotidien, leur maison, leur commerce, les marchandises, tout ce qui servait à leur négoce. Comment dès lors rester sans moyens de vie? Le choix était fuir ou mourir. Et j'en arrive au meurtre. Il ressort des récits des victimes que l'impact de meurtre est effroyable. Il détruit la cellule familiale par l'impossibilité de faire le deuil, par le fait de ne pas savoir comment ça s'est passé, l'impossibilité d'avoir un lieu de recueillement. Impact d'autant plus effroyable quand on sait l'importance de la cellule familiale en Afrique, dans ces sociétés, et quand on sait que les traumatismes sont intergénérationnels. En autorisant ces victimes à participer, vous les confortez dans leurs droits reconnus par le statut de Rome, qui consacre leur droit à un recours. Vous les honorez et vous les respectez, ce dont elles vous donnent acte solennellement par notre voix en ce jour d'ouverture du procès de M. Mokom. Ce droit à un recours doit être effectif pour être efficace. À nous, les représentants légaux communs des victimes, de trouver les mécanismes et les modalités pour sa mise en œuvre. À travers ces 3 jours d'audience, elles espèrent que leur soit reconnue la place qu'elles méritent. Il s'agit là d'un enjeu majeur de ce procès. Le troisième enjeu, c'est celui-ci. Ce procès relève aussi d'un chemin de mémoire sur la route de la résilience. Formidable outil de connaissance, d'approche de la vérité, par le vecteur des témoignages et l'énoncé des charges, des lieux, des dates, des noms, toutes ces informations que les victimes ont besoin de connaître. Savoir comment, où, quand ont péri leur mari, leur père, leurs enfants. Questions qui les taraudent, questions dont elles ne peuvent apporter de réponse en l'état actuel. Ce procès, c'est un formidable outil de transmission pour les victimes survivantes et leurs familles. Tout ceci leur donne à comprendre, à réfléchir, à revisiter leurs souvenirs effroyables, trop lourds, trop traumatisants pour être racontés, verbalisés et trop longtemps enfouis. Ce procès, c'est le seul outil de communication, transmission audible, entendable, pour dire l'indicible, pour remettre à leur exacte place à travers les débats cette construction mémorielle de leur vécu personnel et cette page honteuse de l'histoire collective de la République centrafricaine. Et là, le viol est l'illustration de cet indicible. Ce procès, au fil du temps, deviendra pour elles, ces victimes, un cadre de référence et de repères communs qu'elles vont se construire pour aller vers demain. Voilà les perspectives posées, collectives et individuelles. Voilà l'enjeu de ce procès pour les survivantes et les survivants. Les attentes. La première attente. Nous ne pouvons pas nous reconstruire sans justice. Ce ne sont pas mes mots, mais ceux d'une victime. Il s'agit là de la déclaration d'une seule victime, mais qui a le mérite de représenter la pensée de tant d'autres. Nous ne pouvons pas nous reconstruire sans justice. Monsieur le Président, Madame, Monsieur les juges, retenez ces quelques mots, afin que ces derniers fassent écho tout au long de l'audience. Ce procès, au fil du temps, comme je l'ai indiqué précédemment, deviendra pour elles, les victimes survivantes, un cadre de référence et de repères communs pour se construire et raconter l'histoire aux générations futures. Les actes, c'était hier, le passé. Leur vie, c'est aujourd'hui. C'est dans des camps ou dans des enclaves. Demain, quel avenir auront-elles à part de se considérer comme victimes? La deuxième attente, c'est tirer les enseignements autant que possible pour briser la chaîne de violence, de haine, d'instabilité qui a conduit des milliers de victimes en exil et forcer des milliers d'entre elles à vivre dans des conditions déplorables, indignes de l'être humain. La Cour connaît des crimes commis en République centrafricaine depuis 2003. Mettre fin à ces traumatismes transgénérationnels, ancrés dans les esprits, dans la conscience collective, non pas la vengeance, mais le plus jamais ça. Plus jamais ça. Éduquer au respect, à la dignité de toute personne, à l'élimination de toute forme de discrimination raciale, ethnique, religieuse, apprendre la culture de la paix. La connaissance des faits, l'établissement de la vérité historique permet l'éducation, permet le respect des droits par les jeunes générations orphelines vivant dans des camps et exilées de leurs racines. Nous leur devons ces vérités, nous leur devons cette connaissance de l'histoire et nous leur devons cette éducation. C'est la garantie de non-répétition. C'est leur donner l'espoir d'une autre vie meilleure, l'espoir de s'en sortir autrement que par le biais de la guerre et la violence. La troisième attente, c'est dans ce cadre, dans cette action collective, que s'inscrit la participation des victimes et qu'elle s'impose comme une évidence. Intervenir à la fois globalement et individuellement. Tel est le sens de cette participation. Ces victimes sont très nombreuses. Déjà au stade des victimes participantes que vous avez acceptées. Mais elles ne se sont pas encore toutes fait connaître. Elles veulent des réponses à leurs interrogations, à leurs souffrances. Et nous, les représentants légaux communs des victimes, allons les accompagner tout au long de ce cheminement. Nous, les représentants légaux communs des victimes, et elles, les victimes participantes, allons œuvrer pour être entendues et que soit renforcée dans le procès pénal international la place des victimes. Pour conclure, ce procès Mokom, c'est pour les victimes ouvrir la voie des possibles, œuvrer pour l'histoire, rendre visibles ceux qui n'ont pas de voix. C'est le combat de leur vie pour que demain, elles puissent reprendre leur chemin de vie. Cette réponse judiciaire, les victimes l'attendent. Monsieur le Président, Madame, Monsieur les juges, ne les décevez pas. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Madam. You done your part, and your colleagues are supposed to continue speaking. Okay, so all right, then we can.
Mes collègues prendront la parole demain, à partir de 9h, Monsieur le Président.
Madam, we still have time. We've started late today, so we will have roughly 20 minutes. If you're prepared to start, then you comfortable with it?
Oui, Monsieur le Président, les déclarations que nous avons entendues depuis ce matin ont fortement perturbé les préparations que nous avions déjà communiquées. Donc, il nous faut revoir nos déclarations pour pouvoir intégrer les notes que nous avons prises aujourd'hui. Donc, c'est la raison pour laquelle nous souhaiterions prendre la parole demain.
Okay, I will. All right, I understand. Okay, I accept that. So we'll adjourn the hearing, and for tomorrow at 9:30. And I would like to thank everyone, the participants, but especially our interpreters and everyone who's working behind the scenes, from the registry, technical experts, and everyone, for allowing the hearing to take place. Thank you very much, and see you tomorrow. Have a nice afternoon.
All right, we will be.